Welcome to Health Activators with lifestyle medicine doctor, GP and longevity expert Dr. Alka Patel. This show will help you to discover a hidden health hacking code that unlocks your phenomenal potential for an outstanding health span, lifespan and wealth span. The show features candid conversations with celebrities, influencers and industry icons, real life stories and cutting-edge health activating advice that other doctors might not tell you. Discover why now is the time to join the strategic self-care revolution and experience the profound effects this will have on your personal and professional success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, health activators. Power, drive, grit. These are 3 words to describe my guest today, Shelley Jory-Leigh. She's the British record and world record powerboat champion. Shelley has been racing powerboats for almost 30 years now, forging her way through what she describes as a male-dominated sport to achieve titles that place her at one of the top races in the world. She's the first woman ever to win the British 3-hour endurance race on Lake Windermere. She's the first woman to enter the Powerboat P1 International Evolution class, making her #1 female in the world. She's broken a national speed record on Lake Coniston at 114 miles per hour, awarding then with the famous trophy, the First Lady of the Lake. And when she's not racing, she's presented. She is presented for Sky Sports, CBS America, and she hosts her own radio show on BBC Radio Solent. And when she's not doing that, she's doing something you might not quite associate with a powerboat champion. Before we get into today's show, please do support today's show partner, Youth and Earth. Youth and Earth have a range of products that I love to use myself to supercharge my metabolism, to support my health, and to slow down cellular aging. Just be sure you click the link in the show notes for exclusive offers, which Youth and Earth are so generously giving for listeners of this show. Shelley, welcome. It is so lovely to have you here. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Lovely to be asked. Thank you. I'm honoured.
Oh, likewise. Gosh, no, me. I'm the one who's absolutely honoured because I've got so much that I want to ask you. And really, where do we kick off? Let's kick off right at the beginning. Powerboats is your thing, and I'm really intrigued into how powerboats even entered your world. So take us back all the way to the beginning.
It was never in my world. I don't come from a marine background. My family business, which is now 45 years old, is bridal wear. I know. I've been brought up, the shop opened when I was 6 years old, and I can just, my whole life, I can remember being in the shop and helping my mum and dad, and just slave labor, child slave labor it was. So there was no marine background whatsoever. Always been extremely sporty, always had to win. And so went through boarding school, and was just loved the sports side of it, was useless in the classroom. But the sports side of it was just, it was one of those things at school where it was like, Shelley, have you done your maths homework? Well, no, because I had trampoline practice.
Quite.
Why would I do my maths? Very, very sporty, always been very driven, probably to my detriment. I think even as an early age, I pushed myself too hard. And it was no one's fault. It was me. It was me who was pushing. I didn't have pushy parents or anything like that. So when I got into my 20s, I had a boyfriend at the time who had a powerboat, which we basically just used to use for pleasure. And we would go I'm very lucky, I live on the south coast. So we would go out into the Solent and watch all the big powerboat races. And we would just sit there in awe and think, wow, this is like a millionaire's playground. and we would watch and everything. And anyway, then they bought out a touring class into powerboat racing. So it was basically like you have touring cars, so you can go and race a Mini or a Renault or, you know, whatever you want, or a Porsche. And so they bought out this touring class, which meant that anybody with any kind of powerboat, as long as you put the safety equipment on board, you know, donned a crash helmet, life jacket, you could go and race. So our boat fitted into that. So we thought, well, let's just give it a go. At first, I was the team manager. I wasn't in the boat. I helped my boyfriend and his friend go, and I sort of got them a little bit of sponsorship, and I was just the organised one and got them all, you know, and we all had matching T-shirts and all this. You know, we thought we were part of the millionaires world. And it really started from there. The second year I got in and navigated for him, and his friend went and got another boat. But it was literally something we did at the weekend. It was like people go like rally car driving or motocross. It was fun. We did it at the weekend. We all worked very hard during the week, and that was that. And before I knew it, I was asked by other teams to come and navigate for them, because I was a woman in a very man's world, very much man's world. And although I'm not light by any means, I'm lighter than most men. So if I could navigate in the back of a boat in like a 2-meter class where the power to weight is important.
Amazing.
You know, it was amazing. And before I knew it, I was in South Africa in the World Championships, coming home with a bronze medal, the only woman competing, and it was just, it roller coasted from there. It wasn't easy. And I sort of bought my own first boat, which was literally a 19-foot boat with a 90 horsepower on it. And to give you a perspective, the top boats I raced were 48 foot with, instead of 90 horsepower, they were like nearly 2,000 horsepower.
Where you started and where you gone.
And I literally climbed the ladder. They say you climb the ladder in sport. I literally did that from the very bottom, raced nearly every single class, bought a boat, did it up, sold it, bought a boat, did it up, sold it. Had an all-girl team as soon as I could, you know, sort of afford to do it. And that was that. 2 girls racing against all the men.
Wow. So that really is a story that comes all the way back to what you said right at the beginning, which is I was always driven and I always had to win. And that sounds like it's something that's really innate to you. So when you saw this millionaire playground, as you described, this idea that, I want to be in that, but I also want to take it that next level and that next level and that next level. Where does that sort of winning mindset come from? Is it parental? Is it the people that you've been around? When you say it's innate in you, where does it come from?
I think it's my mum. My mum was always very driven. She was the bridal wear person, and she'd always worked for massive big companies, and it was me, it was having me that actually she then decided, no, I'm going to open my own business. And she was always very driven in the business to, you know, be the best and succeed. And so I wouldn't say they pushed it on me, my parents, but it's definitely in my genes.
Yeah. And there's something there about that sort of epigenetic, that genetic line that comes down, which is often very maternal, in fact, as well. So it's really interesting that you've described that from your mum as well. So I've got this visual of you as a young girl in her little outsized high heels, trotting around the bridal wear shop, you know, every girl's playground. And yet you swap that for this crash helmet, which then becomes your uniform. So how was that for you?
Well, you say it's every girl's dream, but Alka, I hated it. I did not like the wedding industry at all. It maybe because I saw how hard my mum and dad worked, and it's a very hard industry. And, you know, and it wasn't for me. I wasn't, I'm very girly and I love pretty things and, sparkly things, but I never wanted to work in the bridal industry. But as it happens, I mean, powerboat racing, you can't have, powerboat racing is a semi-professional sporting career. I was lucky enough that I had sponsorships to help me race, but there's no way you're ever going to pay the mortgage with it. So I still worked in the bridal business. So when I think from the age of 21, I was running it. So I run our bridal business and still do to this day for the last 35 years. And that's tough. I was running a business alongside a semi-professional sporting career. There are no grants, there are no funds, there are no nothing. You can go out and get sponsorship if you're lucky. But you have to, I was literally getting up at 6. I was in the gym training until 8:30. Had to be in the business by 9, often worked there till, like anyone knows in their own business, you're often there way after the shop closes. I've even been training at 6 o'clock in the morning in my powerboat and then gone on to work, run a bridal shop all day long with 10 staff. And then, in the evening, I'm doing my race instructions or I'm looking, entering the next course. So I always had, you said that I sort of changed that uniform for that uniform. Well, it was daily. So daily, this is what I was during the day with a suit on and dealing with staff and customers, etc., and suppliers. And then at 5 o'clock, all came off, crash helmet on, life jacket on, go and practice. Wow. So it was changing my uniform daily.
Of course. So do you see this in many women, this sense that, so what you've sort of almost portrayed here is running a business that you're not really passionate about, but you're in because it provides what seems to be the currency that we live in at the moment, which is money, and that needs to drive everything else. And that for you is then driving the real passion that you've had. And for many women, there's a big sacrifice, isn't there, in that not everyone's able to follow that drive and that instinct and that passion, and yet find themselves in a business or in a career or in a corporate environment which isn't fueling that need. Is that something that you've come across?
100%, yes. I had to keep running the bridal business because I had to pay my mortgage. And I'm not gonna say the bridal business helped me go racing, because if I'd worked in a corporate company somewhere, some companies, yes, they encourage you to go out and be a sportswoman, but when I got to the top of my career, I was having to go away for 5 days at a time for a race. Well, you can only do that if you're running your own business and you're self-employed, sort of thing. But a lot of women, yes, I think, if they're in the corporate world and they can't leave that corporate world, because if they come out, somebody's going to go in and take it. And a man will step in and take it. When you're in that world, you've got to keep fighting to make sure you save your space. Now, in powerboat racing, I don't want to become across as sexist, but if I had been a man and the rate I was progressing and how good I was, I probably would have been given more opportunities in powerboat racing, and may have even got to a stage where I could have been paid to actually drive boats, because there are some male powerboat racers, who have got to that level where they can pay their mortgage by powerboat racing. I'm going back 20 years. A woman would never have been given that opportunity. I would have loved for somebody to whisked me up and said, right, come and drive for me. But I think, do they think, oh, she's going to get married and she's going to have children and, we'll have a powerboat racer who then can't race for a year because she's having a baby or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tough to even hear you kind of speaking about this now, because one would hope and one thinks there's been a big shift, and certainly your language is very much around kind of it's a male dominated sport. The sports arena is very male dominated. We've seen this in arenas like football, for example, haven't we, where there's been a transition and a recognition, and it's taken a lot of fight and gumption, and it feels like we shouldn't need to be fighting. So those words, male
No.
dominance, fighting, are those still words for now, or are you going back 20 years?
In my world, they're still now. Yeah, they're still now. I would love to be able to turn the clock back, and I would love to be 25, 30 now in this world where we've got the amazing female football teams, etc., coming through. And I would love to be at the top of my game now, because I think I mean, a lot of the big money in the powerboat racing is in America, and I reckon I could go to America now and get a paid drive. I could be paid to drive someone's boat out there and on my skill alone. But, that's not going to happen. And, hopefully I have laid the path. I'm not going to say I've single-handedly done it, but hopefully me and all these, I can't think of the amazing people off the top of my head, like the female footballers.
Absolutely.
We've all helped to make this change going forward. But yes, my world is still very male dominated, because as you saw, what I explained to you, I've now gone on to the management side, and it's still tough.
Yeah, and it is. Tell me about the setback, Shelley, because you had an accident, and a pretty serious one. Tell us about that and how that really felt.
That didn't help. I mean, powerboat racing's a dangerous sport, as in nearly all sports are. And that's what we love. That's what we do it for. We do it for the adrenaline and the drive and after a rough race where you literally bashed yourself to pieces, and it's like you've had a car crash for like an hour over and over again. That's what we do it for. But yes, unfortunately, in 2010, I had a really big accident. I'd had a couple of accidents before, because that's just the way the sea is very unpredictable. But nothing as serious as this. And, it was a shame, because it wasn't our fault. I was driving and I had a throttle man beside me. So basically, just so you understand, in powerboat racing, when you're sort of at the top level, one steers and one throttles. So it's like sitting in your car, you've got hold of the steering wheel, but somebody else has got their foot on the accelerator. So the teamwork is
on point,
like,
doesn't it?
Just absolutely on point. You are literally putting your life in that person's hand. So anyway, I was actually driving for Belgium at the time in a boat called Spirit of Belgium. And I had a lovely Belgian throttle man, and we had a very freak accident. But unfortunately, it wasn't our fault, because the boat had a structural failure. It was a new boat. It hadn't quite been built as it should have been built. And as we clipped a wave, which you often do, it just disintegrated. And it was basically like driving a car into a brick wall at 90 mile an hour with no seatbelt on. We have life jackets on, and basically my life jacket saved my lungs and my chest amazingly. And we have the crash helmets on, obviously. And my crash helmet just imploded into my face. I mean, I was lucky. I was awake within seconds. my co-driver was unconscious for 3 days. So, fortunately I was awake and I was able to call on the radio immediately that we needed assistance and help my co-driver and keep him sort of, I was trying to keep him upright so that his airways were open and things. But yes, it was a pretty big smash. I sort of broke all my nose, and my sort of the front of my skull up here. So yeah, it was a pretty big crash. I've got a new nose.
Silver lining, lovely profile.
Yes. I was quite happy with the nose before, but anyway. So yes, and it was a real big shock to the system. Physically, it took me 3 years to recover. I had concussion for 10 months. So I walked around like I was drunk for 10 months. But mentally, I can quite honestly say now, looking back, I never recovered. Never. So it really, it really took my, I'm still driven because I still annoy myself with it. But I definitely lost all the mojo for racing. I lost the fight for racing.
Is that fear, you think? That's...
Yes, 100% fear. I had to have, I basically had 10 months of concussion. Then after a year, I got back into a boat because it was basically a bit like I'd always been taught, and through everything I've done, gymnastics, trampolining, if you fall off the horse, get back on quickly. So within a year, I said I wanted to do a race. So I did a championship for a year. I went slightly down in power. So I sort of went back to my back a few classes, as it were, in power, because I thought I'm going to go back to where I was most happiest racing, where I loved my racing days, and go from there. But I just didn't enjoy it. I was fearful every time I went out. And it was more than just adrenaline fear. It was proper sick fear.
To it.
And I just didn't come back and have the buzz. And I then spent the next. I then took 2 years off, to be fair. So I did a year racing. It wasn't right. I then sort of realized, or the doctors sort of said, look, physically, you're not really there. So give yourself a break. So I took 2 years off, completely no racing, but went and did a load of other things. I mean, it was amazing. The BBC picked me up, and I had a radio show with Sir Robin Knox-Johnston, which was lovely. So I had lots of things to do. I started doing TV, expert pundit, what's the word? Great. Commentary. So I did all that. So I had lots of things thrown at me, which was amazing because people said, well, she's not in a boat, but she can talk for England and she knows exactly what's happening. She can talk for England. So, let's use her as an expert pundit on the powerboat racing. So I had lots of things to do. Then went back racing after about a 2-year break when I was sort of physically much better and stronger, and thought, right, well, there's no excuses now, Shelley, so get on with it. And I had 3 great years racing. I actually raced with a great friend of mine, which was lovely because, we had a friendship before we'd even got into the boat together. And I got some amazing results. I got a world record. I became the highest English woman in a huge endurance race called the Cows Torquay Cows. It's an iconic endurance race. It's very, very tough, very, very hard. And people come from all over the world to do it. And I did that, and we got second place, which made me, as I said, the highest British woman ever. Yeah, so I was achieving stuff. I was getting the results I wanted, but I just wasn't enjoying it. It was flat.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nothing there anymore.
And there has to be that drive, doesn't there? And that it comes from the passion that has to sit with it. And again, I see this a lot, again, especially amongst female entrepreneurs, business owners. They'll go and get all the accolades. So yes, you got, treasure trove of trophies, but behind that, where's the emotion and the, as you say, that passion and that fire? And when that goes, it takes a bit of bravado and courage to say, okay, it's time to switch gears. So Shelley, what was that time like then for you when you made that decision that it is time to hang up my crash helmet? Was it mixed emotions, or did you feel a readiness? What was that like?
Huge mixed emotions, huge. And I'd literally just finished another one of these Cows Torquay Cows races. So I just spent 3 hours in the boat, battering my way to Torquay across Lyme Bay, etc., with my friend, and I think we'd done quite well. I think we'd got another 4th place. So, it wasn't a bad race that we'd failed on. And I just got out, and my husband was there because obviously I met my husband through racing. It's probably it should be the greatest thing I'm proud of from Powerboat racing. It's not, it's actually winning, but don't tell him that. But yes, I met my husband, who was my race engineer, and I said, and he's very much involved in powerboat racing, totally understands the whole dynamics of it, worked in it longer than me. He's worked in it in all his life. And I just said to him, I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I've just finished one of the toughest races in the world. And I feel like, whatever. And he said, well, don't do it. Stop it. And literally within an hour, at a lot of these powerboat events, I often present prize giving for them because I've got my, BBC background, etc., etc. And I basically, within an hour, I stood up on stage and I said, just to let everybody know, I'm hanging my crash helmet up. And I hadn't spoken to anybody about it apart from my husband. I hadn't even told my friend, Dorian, who I'd literally just spent 3 hours racing with.
Yeah.
And he looked at me was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm done. We vaguely counted up, and I'd done over 900 races.
Wow. Say that again, 900 races.
Yeah, I'd done over roughly, like, going through the years and how many times you race in a year, etc., etc. And most weekends it was 2 races a weekend. And yeah, I'd done over 900 races. One day I will sit down and properly count it up. So I thought, do you know what? I've given it a fair crack.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some great titles. I've had an amazing life. I've traveled the world. I've worked with very famous people on the BBC. I'd been made a younger brother of Trinity House, which was a huge accolade, massive accolade. And I thought, do you know what? Yeah, this is good. I've done it. I can spend the rest of my time public speaking and telling people about how lovely it was, and talking to like you. And I thought I've done it. So I did, that was it. I did try and do one more race. I did try and do one more guest race about 3 years ago. Still wasn't there. So,
Yeah. So like you say, it sounds as though you said your mental health never sort of fully recovered. What do you do now in terms of your own self-care to take care of your emotions, even your sort of, physical body? What's your self-care approach?
I miss the adrenaline buzz. I miss that. And I think my body has always thrived on it. And I think probably with powerboat racing, I probably gave it more than it needed. So I find that very difficult to replace.
Right.
I ride horses. I've got my own horse now. I went at the age of 50, had a complete midlife crisis and went and bought a horse. And learned to ride as I'd ridden when I was very, very young, but I'd learned to re-ride as an adult at the age of 50. So I try and balance it. I have to take time out. I really, really have to take myself away and say, no, Shelley, just slow down.
Yeah.
Life isn't a race. My whole life has felt like it's a race.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got to get all of these accolades as I'm going along. I've got to achieve something. I've got to achieve something. And my mind is terrible for me, because my mind is always saying, what can you achieve now? What can you achieve now? And it never stops. It never, ever stops. So I have to tell myself, this isn't a race.
Yeah.
Calm down. You've worked very hard this year and you've achieved this and this and this. So just take some time out. And one of the questions you asked me, where's my happy place? Where's my time out place? And it's my bed. I love my bed. I am a duvet monster.
Oh.
I absolutely love my bed. And to get into my bed and in the middle of the afternoon with a cup of coffee and a bar of chocolate and a book is my chill down time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important for women to hear this as well. I was interviewed by Stylist magazine recently on this very sort of topic of this pressure of time, this race of life, this sense that women particularly feel they've always got to be achieving, always moving on to the next thing. And I think it comes from multiple things. One is this sort of multiple roles that we have. So not only are we multiple tasking, but we're multiple rolling, because we're filling all these obligations and needs for people around us. And then there's also this sort of biological clock thing going that says, by this decade and by this decade and by 50 or by 20 or by 30, I need to have achieved A, B, and C. And we were talking earlier about social media, and then we see it all over social media, what everyone else has done in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. And then you've got this real sense of constant pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to bring it back to the male-female thing again, but the men don't have that. They have no time clock. I now manage quite a lot of powerboat teams, and I work with 7 American teams out in America, and I'm sort of basically they're general dog's body really, but they're complete team liaison. But a lot of those guys, they're in their 60s and 70s. I would say our oldest guy probably is late 60s. And, he has no qualms about carrying on powerboat racing. They're very fit. They obviously all work out. They're extremely strong.
Yeah.
And he has no qualms, where as a woman, we're told to slow down.
Yes.
Because our bones won't last. If you keep thrashing your bones at the age of 60, by the age of 75, you're going to be, and all of this. And so it is difficult for the women. We do have a definite timeline. And I think we're sort of not told to achieve, but we are told to slow down. I mean, I never had any children, Alka. So, I think a lot of women put it into their children, don't they? They then live their lives through their children. Yeah. And I didn't have that. For my own choice, that was my own choice. I'm far too selfish, and I loved in my 30s and 40s, I was still powerboat racing all around the world and absolutely loved it. And there was no way that anybody was going to come in and
steer me in a different direction. That's not happening.
Exactly. There was no way I was going to, give my my time to somebody else, which is extremely selfish, but that was me. But so I think when you don't have your children to sort of live your life through, you punish yourself. You go, well, I haven't got children, so I've got to do this and this and this and this. And that's one of my problems.
And your strengths, of course, as well. And I think the other thing you highlight really well is, again, just about not allowing ourselves to be in the moment. So, the moment you've won one trophy, you're thinking about the next and the next race. The moment you've won the one race, you're onto the next. The moment we achieve one thing, it's thinking about the next. And we don't savor that present moment. Even, women with children who are juggling careers, you miss out on bath time, even though you're there at bath time, because your head is thinking about that next email you've got to send, or the next, proposal you've got to get out, or the next client you've got to be serving. So I think that's what is the ground issue, is that we're really not savoring the moment. And I like what you said about slowing down to one level, because that's the only way that we do get to savor those moments. But there's also this sense of like drive and ambition. Well, it is important. Like, as humans, evolution, our growth is just literally fundamentally how we are made. And we've got to tap into that and pull into that calling of not keeping up with the men, not far from it, but more pulling into what is calling to us. And then back to what we were talking about originally, which is about passion and following that. What advice would you give to women listening who perhaps are suppressing that drive or suppressing that passion and that desire? What should they do?
Don't suppress it. Follow your dreams. It's going to be a battle and it's going to be mentally hard, but it's all worth it in the end. Just go for it. Just do it. I've been one of those people that all my life, whatever opportunity has been thrown at me, I say yes before I actually think of what I've just said yes to. That makes sense.
Yes.
And sometimes my husband is like, oh, no. And, some of my friends say, just slow down, Shelley. And I'm like, no, I said yes. So let's go. Let's do it. But there are times when, yes, it has brought me down and I've thought this is ridiculous and it's hard, but I think the good times outweigh the bad times. So do not suppress anything. Whatever you want to do, go and do it, but be ready for the battle. Be ready for the mental battle. But it's all worth it in the end, 100%. So just go for it. I mean, I've got all sorts of things. I've literally just finished an extremely busy summer working back and forwards from America with all these American teams. I should be satisfied that I did a good job. I did a great job. Everyone was happy, but I'm not. I'm already thinking of like, right, what should we do now? Where should we go now? I've done that job, so I can do that job again next year. That's easy. I've already done it, so I can do that one. And what can I add on to the top of the list for my next adventure?
And it's getting that. It's that, rolling with the waves in a way, just to keep a bit of the water analogy going. But it's allowing yourself to kind of peak, but also knowing that oscillating is so important. We do need to have those periods of not time out as such, which is just sort of, loosely just going to have bubble baths and things like that, but more that kind of really strategic self-care where you're zoning into what do I need right now that doesn't need me to be right at the top of the crest, but that I can just have some space to perhaps be slower, to marinate in what I've achieved and what I'm doing, to reflect on the direction that I want to go, and then go for it. And I think without that oscillation, with the go, the risk, of course, is the crash, the burnout, the stress taking over everything, takes over your physiology, and it will show up then in your health. And I think there is a risk there. So just, again, allowing that ebb and flow to go with the tide is so important as well.
I love what you've just said, and I've never ever thought of my life like it, but it is exactly what to me, it's like, you've got the rough seas, which are angry and going. And then you've got the calm seas. And that's exactly what my life is like. And I would say that sometimes I have to get out of the rough sea and the buzz and the drive, and I need to come into the calm sea. So I love that. I've never ever thought of that, of the ebb and flow, which is, I love it. It's wonderful.
Wonderful. My goodness, we've got so much more that we could talk about. Shelley, tell us what you're up to now, and what you're doing at the moment before we clock off.
Well, yeah, as I said, I now manage the team, so I'm not actually sat in the boat, but I'm passing on my skill and expertise to the teams that are still racing, and a team manager is quite crucial in powerboat racing, and it's quite a key point of the whole team, bringing the engineers and the actual pilots, the engineers, everyone together, the media, the rules and everything. So that's what I work on at the moment. So I'm basically very much involved in my sport, which I love, but on dry land, as it were, and watching my teams go out and race. And I get such a kick out of when they win as well. I mean, it's like you're sat in the boat with them. I mean, it's just so emotional. And then we've got another project which is just floating at the moment. It's just floating. It's not into the rough seas yet. It's just floating, which is going to be really exciting. I can't say too much about it at the moment. I know. I'm going to give you a little teaser, and then I will come back and chat to you next year, hopefully, if you'll have me back, and tell you all about it. But what it's going to do is allow... I've joined forces with an excellent friend of mine who has basically helped me through my whole career. She's been my media strategist. She's been my rock, my sounding block, everything. And on those very, very dark days when I have crashed and burned, she has picked me up. So I've joined forces with her. And it's a project where we're going to... I just want to give back to people what I got from being on the water. The water is, and most people, when they think of being on the water, they think of calm and tranquil and sailing and the sunsets. No. That's not my life. Me on the water is the best roller coaster ride you've ever done, and you're in charge and in control. And I want to give some of that back. And I think there's a lot of people, men, women, right across the board, who have never had the chance to feel that drive and adrenaline of buzzing across the water at speed and being in control.
Right.
And it's just a little project that, we're working on for that. And watch this space.
I'm intrigued and exciting. And probably the closest I've come on is like a jet ski, and did you like
it?
And it's that combination of kind of fear and thrill, and it's which one you allow to take over. And invariably for me, and unfortunately for me, the fear takes over, and I don't allow myself to completely throttle into it whenever I've been on a jet ski. And I would love for that to be switched around, because the thrill of life is there, right? And I think there's again so many analogies here with women who hold themselves back from that fear because of that fear, because you let that take over rather than the thrill of the joy. So I am super excited to hear and see what unfolds next year for this.
Well, we will get you along, Alka. And I have a challenge now to get rid of that fear. And for you to literally just let go and let your adrenaline take over, and we're gonna do that.
Wow.
We're gonna do that. Yes,
it will be a challenge, Shelley. I warn you now.
No, because we'll go from a jet ski up to a boat.
Wow.
So you've got a little bit more around you, a little bit more, and I'm gonna watch your face change and see the adrenaline and the buzz come through, and no fear. There you go.
No joke. My heart rate has literally just gone up. I can already feel it.
Yeah, you're going to. That's what I feel every time I get behind a boat and take the helm, and I'm like, whoa. This is fabulous. And although, all what we've been talking about, I haven't had that race buzz and adrenaline for a long time, on any pleasure boat, small rib, Sunseeker, whatever you want, you still get that lovely feeling, not the adrenaline race fear, but that lovely feeling of just whoosh, the power and the waves and everything. So, yeah, you're going to get it.
And the freedom. And oh, I'm so excited. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shelley. You've left me with a real buzz, which is fantastic, which I wasn't expecting at the end of this conversation. But what a lovely delight. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for sharing everything that you've been through. It's been really inspiring. I know there'll be a lot of women, particularly listening, who will make a change to what they're thinking and what they're doing as a result of listening. So really appreciate you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Alka.
Wow. Adrenaline. Talk about adrenaline. Just being on screen with Shelley has spiked my adrenaline. My heart really is racing right now. And I just cannot imagine what it would be like with Shelley face to face on the water in a powerboat. Challenge accepted. But adrenaline. What is it about adrenaline? Clearly something that Shelley loves to find pulsating through her. But why do we seek adrenaline? What is it about the thrills and chills? So next week, I'm going to dive into the science of the thrill and look at the chemistry that lies behind the seeking of sensation. Exciting. So I'll see you next week, and I wish you a health activating day.